I'm Michelle Salt. I am hoping to share my story about my accident, my recovery, and what I've done since then. Sports was something that gave me the platform to be myself and to be confident. And outside of that, I didn't have a lot of confidence. I started a business when I was young. I got married when I was young, and then I got divorced not long after. So by 24, I was already divorced. And then my business partner passed away in a motorcycle accident. In a very short period of time, I had the reset button pressed on me, but more than twice. I was 26 when I decided to get my motorcycle license. Growing up riding dirt bikes, I knew that I would enjoy it, and I did. But I also picked up bad habits, and I was riding with guys who were like, keep up or we're gonna leave you behind. We had gone to this town outside of Calgary called Bragg Creek, and on the way out there, we were driving, I don't even want to tell you the speed we were going, because it was to the point where, like, if you put your body up, if you lifted your head at all, you'd come right off your bike. Like, it was terrifying. We got to Bragg Creek. There was 2 other riders I was with, and we had met up with a third. I remember saying to the group, like, guys, is it possible for us just to slow it down? I don't want anybody to lose their license. That's all I could think about was from Bragg Creek to Cochrane, which is another small town outside of Calgary. We were going the speed limit. It was nice and slow. And when we got to the very bottom of that hill, that's when the guys had opened up. And at this point, our third rider, we had lost a rider. She had went home. And so it was just myself and the 2 guys. And they had opened up, and they said, or I've been told, that they were going probably 180 kilometers an hour up this hill, which is very fast. Considering the speed limit was 80 kilometers, they were going 100 kilometers over the speed limit. So I didn't want to be left behind. It was a very windy, curvy road. It wasn't busy that day. We were at a red light. They opened up. I got to the first corner, a ways behind them. I was going 120, which is 40 kilometers over the speed limit. And I don't know what happened, but according to the investigation, I hit my back brake, which caused my bike to lay down. I went lane and a half, slid a lane and a half across the road with this 500-pound machine pinned on top of me. And then we both, myself and the bike, hit the guardrail. I did cartwheels in the air and I hit the guardrail again. So upon impact, I broke almost everything in my lower body. I had bilateral compound tib fractures. I had shattered my pelvis, my hips, my right clavicle, L4, L5 vertebrae. I had punctured a lung, bruised my spleen. And when I broke my right femur in 2 places, it severed my femoral artery. I was bleeding out. The way I had broke my femur in 2 places, they couldn't do anything. 3 complete strangers stopped, and they laid with me, and they all held hands and said the Lord's Prayer. Her name was Glen Ellen. She was a nurse, an ER nurse that was retired, and she knew that I most likely was going to bleed to death. So she called 911, and they asked if we needed STARS. And STARS is our helicopter that transports critically injured patients. So STARS was my best hope and chance for survival. If I would have went by ground, I would have bled to death, 100%. They couldn't tourniquet the way that all of my bones were broken. So yeah, she just laid on the ground with me, and she kept saying, it's okay, you can go be with God. Like, you can go now. Because when you sever that artery, it's like opening a garden hose. Like, you're losing blood so quickly. Most people will bleed out within 10 to 15 minutes. But because I had just done my fitness competition a month and a bit before, my heart was strong, and it was able to keep me alive. Was in and out of consciousness. They kept losing my vitals. And the third time they lost my vitals, when I was being put on the STARS stretcher, I had a full out-of-body experience. I was looking down at my body, knowing that I was going to die. And I remember thinking, I'm too young. This can't be right. I'm way too young to die. Like, I need to be strong in this moment. I need to survive. I had hit the guardrail head first, so I had a brain injury. I remembered my mom's phone number, and so my parents were called. My dad was a firefighter for 35 years, so he understood how serious it was. My parents were told that, like, you need to get here now. They live about 3 hours away, and they were told, you need to get here now. I bled out for 23 minutes. And the second I was pushed through the hospital doors, my body shut down. They pumped me full of blood. I needed 28 units of blood, which is 3 times what my body holds. And I went through multiple surgeries. My family sat in a room for 36 hours waiting to hear if I was going to survive. I was put into an induced coma. I had breathing tubes, respirator, feeding tubes. Essentially, machines were keeping me alive. 7 days on life support, 5 months in the hospital, all of those surgeries to recover from, a lot of hardware put inside of me, and just a tough time, I think maybe more so for my family, who had to sit there and witness all of that, whereas I don't remember my accident. I don't remember the first 4 days. Like, it's all, I just woke up and I was like, couldn't see because I had these respirators and stuff. I couldn't sit up. I had shattered my pelvis and some vertebrae. So I wasn't able to see what was going on with my body, but I knew that I had been in a bad accident. When the respirators finally came out, which there was 3 days where I was awake and coherent and fighting the respirators because it was such an unnatural feeling. And like to this day, I still struggle with changing my breathing patterns because it reminds me so much of like having machines breathing for me. But yeah, it was, obviously quite traumatizing. And then the respirators came out and I was able to like talk again and ask for a toothbrush because it had been a while. Yeah, so it was either day 7 or day 8. The bone doctor comes in. He starts telling me about how he has this neighbor that drives and goes to university and just lives this very like self-sufficient life. And I'm like, okay, that's a great story, but why are you telling me this story? He was like, he knew my family didn't want to tell me quite yet. They wanted to give me time to like recover, but I had all these questions. And so I believe my older sister was the one in the room at the time. And so she had come over and she's like, they had to amputate your leg quite high above the knee. They tried to do everything they could to save it. They took a main vein from the left leg that was still there, damaged, but still there, and they put it in the right leg. It wouldn't take, so they had to amputate. I remember feeling really confused. I didn't know what my life was going to look like, but also something inside of me was like, there's an opportunity here. And I guess when I was on life support, my family would talk to me about like how I'm going to do big things with my life. And I think it was that day someone had mentioned the Paralympic, and I was like, oh, the Paralympics. And was within that 24 hours, I was like, going to the Paralympics. I'm becoming a Paralympian. And everyone's like, okay, like you're heavily medicated. We're going to come back to this. And I was like, no, this is what I want to do. I'm going to be a Paralympian and I'm going to be a one-legged fitness model. These are my goals, right? So it didn't die from there. It very much became real. It became my motivation. I spent 5 months in the hospital. And so I went through a lot of physio, learning to walk all over again, learning to sit up on my own. And that was always in the back of my mind. Like, if I'm going to get back on my snowboard, if I'm going to, hit the gym again, this is what I need to do. And it was so much harder than I anticipated. Being able to walk with a prosthetic knee, especially I started on a very basic one, just a hydraulic knee, and it was so difficult. I was quite high above the knee, and I had a contracture, and I had all these other injuries that I had to wait to heal, and this hardware that was put inside of me. And so, I was like, I'm just going to put this leg on and run right out of here. But that was not the case at all. Coming home from the hospital was even harder because you don't have those people to help you, to make those meals for you. Though I couldn't wait to be independent again and get home and start my life all over again, it was such a hard transition, just having to walk everywhere. And, I started with a walker, went down to a cane, and I was so exhausted. I'd go like 20 feet. I'd be just so tired, and standing on the leg hurt. So I did a lot of things just without my leg at first, but that was hard too, hopping everywhere. I had a bunch of surgeons that all knew I was very athletic before. My surgeons were all very adamant that I should wait at least 2 years before I get back on my snowboard. My accident happened in 2011. In 2012, snowboarding was announced to the 2014 Sochi Paralympic Games for the very very first time as a late addition. Just like that, I'm like, hey, I have 2.5 years to get to the Sochi Paralympics. And so many people told me, like, this is impossible. It's not possible. You have so much hardware that needs to heal. It needs to heal into place. That takes time, as well as you have to learn all over again how to snowboard with a prosthetic leg, a prosthetic knee joint, and a foot, right? So that motivation easily became, or that doubt easily became my motivation. It started with such simple steps like getting out of the house, navigating the stairs with my prosthetic, finding a socket that fit properly. That was a huge challenge for me too, because I was losing so much volume due to my trauma to my leg. And then 8 months after my accident, 3 months after I got home from the hospital, I got this new sports knee in, and I decided that I was going to hit the mountains. But of course, I was worried about this hardware. So I took a memory foam mattress, a cheap memory foam, like overlay for a bed, and I cut it all up and I duct taped it into some biking shorts, like bib shorts. And it was all around my hips, my pelvis, where I had the majority of my hardware. And I had to wear these like extra large clothes because it was the only thing that would fit around all this foam that I was wearing. And I had the BioDAP Moto knee, which has Fox mountain bike shocks in it. I knew nothing about these shocks. First time I went out, I was so frustrated that this was, my life now, because I used to be such a good snowboarder. And now I have to learn to do this all over again and adapt. I often say that it's probably just easier to start after you become an amputee, right? Because then you don't remember what it's like when it was easy. It was okay. I was with somebody. I didn't let go of their hands the whole time. And then the second time I got back on my board, I was with my little sister at the hill we grew up riding. And because I had these really baggy clothes and I had this socket that was constantly, like, it wouldn't fit. It was suction, so it would just lose its suction. And I remember I got to the top of the bunny hill and extra large clothes, and my leg came right off and came right through the pant leg of my snowboard pants and was still attached to the snowboard and made it down the hill by itself. I traumatized a lot of people that day. Yeah, I can only imagine what it looks like seeing a snowboard with a leg attached to it coming down the hill. Every single time there was gains and there was those moments of pride, and you're just so happy that you're doing it again. And it became easier as time went on. It went from taking me 2 hours to get down one run in the mountains at Lake Louise to an hour and a half to an hour, and slowly foam came out of my clothes and I started wearing my clothes. And it was about a year to the date of my accident that I went in to get all of my lumbar fixation hardware taken out. So everything that was holding my pelvis together. I went to go get it taken out. I'll never forget my surgeon, Dr. Jacobs, saying, how's it been going? As he's giving me the gas, he's like, how has your recovery been going? And I was like, really good. And then, I'm slowly getting a little loopy, and I'm like, I tried out for the para snowboarding team. And he was one of the surgeons that told me to wait 2 years. And he's like, of course you did. And so, I got all the hardware removed and I'm in the recovery room, and he comes over and he's like, just so you know, you have broken your coccyx, your tailbone. And you actually broke one of the pins that was holding your pelvis together. So I was like, okay, well, it's still holding, it's good. And he's like, you're gonna do what you're gonna do, and so we're gonna support that. We're gonna just please don't break anything else. Don't, hurt yourself. So the recovery was a little bit lengthy then, but it was that training camp on that 1 year anniversary. I'd just come back from a training camp with the national team, and they put me on the prospect team, and they said, you don't have the skill set. You have a long ways to go, but you have the heart. And so we're going to put you on the team. And that coach that, put me on the prospect team, Candace, she was the same coach that I called in the hospital 3 weeks after my accident and said, I'm going to be on your team. What do I have to do to be on your team? And she's like, well, where are you at in terms of like, your snowboarding? And I was like, oh no, like I'm still in the hospital. I haven't even tried on a prosthetic leg. Like I'm not weight bearing for 3 months. She's like, hey, well, call me in like 6 months when you've gotten back on a snowboard and you're back to it. So yeah, that same coach was able to put me on the prospect team, and it was a journey. I had to learn a lot, and my first World Cup, I took out a lot of volunteers in bee netting. I was all over the place. It was a disaster. There's nothing short of that description there. It was pretty scary for everybody else. We were only racing one at a time in border cross, so it was probably for the best for people like me. And then 2014 came around, and again, a lot of people were like, we don't think this is going to happen. You need to set your sights on 2018. But I became Canada's first ever female Paralympic snowboarder when I competed in those Sochi games. And I finished 9th out of, I think we had 13 or 14 girls, but I got there. I did it. I got down the hill, my very first run. I didn't crash. I became a Paralympian. That was my bedside dream, and I was able to make that happen despite not everyone, but a lot of people telling me it wasn't possible. Into the 2018 game, ranked 3rd overall in the world. So there are 2 things that stand out. My business partner, not long before he passed away, he sent me this email. I was going through a tough time. And in this email was, I guess a quote, something that is forever just stood with me. And that is, when you feel your worst and you try your hardest, that's when you gain the most. And, those are the times that we really have to push through, because that's when you're going to get the most out of your resilience and your strength. And, I always told myself in the hospital, this isn't going to be forever. This isn't going to last forever. This pain, emotionally and physically, it's not going to be forever. Things do get better. And I've seen that a lot in my life, going through, these highs and lows. And it's like, hey, I'm a year down the road, I'm going to look back at this and I'm just going to laugh that it was really this hard. But today it's looking up. It's so much better and so much happy. And so you learn to appreciate the hard times when you come out of them, and they suck in the moment. But again, it's not going to last forever.